What's up, guys? Welcome to our video of the NHL top 20 defensemen heading into the 2021-2022 season. We're going to each give our rankings of who we feel are our top 20 defensemen in the NHL. And why don't we start with your honorable mentions now?
So, my honorable mentions, and I'll say this for both of us, is I know both of us don't have Shea Weber on the list, and that's because he's not playing for this entire season, and his career sadly may be over.
Yeah.
So he won't be on this list. He would have been had this not been the case. But my honorable mentions are Brent Burns, Seth Jones, Zach Werenski.
Okay.
And I have Quinn Hughes at my 21 spot.
Okay.
And that's it for me. What about you?
So I also had Brent Burns on here. Another guy that I had on an honorable mention here, John Klingberg. I had him just outside the top 20. Torrey Krug.
Yep.
He's been consistent the past couple of yeyears. And Matthias Ekholm, who's one of the best defensive defensemen in the game right now.
Yeah.
I couldn't justify putting him in my top 20.
Yep.
But yeah, Brent Burns as well. And obviously Shea Weber, if he weren't injured, he'd be on here, but couldn't include him. There were a couple other guys I threw around, but those were the four that I felt were
totally fair. Those are all guys I've thought of. One of the guys you have in your honorable mentions, I have at 20, and John Klingberg.
Okay.
And for 20, it was between him and Hughes, and he beat out Hughes for me because he has an all-round game. Yeah. His points have diminished because of the emergence of Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of that. Who do you have at 20?
At 20, I have Tyson Barrie.
Okay.
And I feel Tyson, as I think you're going to see that a lot of my picks here are offensive based as well.
Yeah.
Just because I think that's so important in the modern defensive role here. Obviously,
top defenseman for the most part.
For the most part, yeah. I think your mind's going to skew a little more offensively, so just keep that in mind. But Tyson Barrie has been one of the best offensive defensemen in the game the past 2 seasons.
Outside of his season in Toronto, his career, he's been up there.
Yeah, so I think his defensive game has some shortcomings, and that's what's holding him back.
Yeah.
He's a guy that I thought about putting higher, and if he did have a defensive game, he'd be higher, but I feel comfortable putting him at 20. I think he's deserving of that contract he got from Edmonton.
Yeah, no, it's a great contract. I like the player. I just didn't keep him on the list because he's never been a guy to lead the blue line.
Yeah.
And for me, I picked guys I would be comfortable building around. And in the top 20, there are 20 defensemen. There are more defensemen than 20 you can build around.
Yeah.
Tyson Barrie just isn't that guy for me. So at 19, I have Charlie McAvoy. And as you go throughout the years, Boston remains a contender, and they're doing it with Charlie McAvoy as their number one defenseman. I think his numbers are good all around. He puts up minutes, and he's really a staple for them now and going forward. Who do you have at 19?
At 19, I have Ryan Ellis.
Okay.
I think Ryan Ellis, I think he's wildly underrated. I think the fact that he had to play behind Shea Weber and then behind Roman Josi when he kind of took over there.
Yep.
I like Ryan Ellis, and I think that's also what elevates Matthias Ekholm to be in that honorable mention status down there. I think it was a great pickup for Philadelphia. I think he's really going to work well with that strong top four they have there. I like his offensive game. I think he's really kind of creating more of a kind of a better name, a better identity for smaller defensemen as well.
Oh, for sure.
So I like him at 19.
So he's 5'9", and I think he is the best complementary defenseman in the NHL.
Yeah,
I don't think I'd ever build a blue line around him.
No.
But he was good with Weber. He was good with Josi, and I think he's going to work wonders with Provorov. And I'm not saying when Provorov's numbers go up, thank Ryan Ellis.
Yeah.
At 18, I have Thomas Chabot putting up crazy minutes in Ottawa. Again, another young defenseman who they're building around, and as they get better, he's going to be their guy on the blue line. That's really all I feel I need to do to explain this. Great defenseman.
Tom Chabot, actually, he fell off my list, so he's not included on mine.
Yeah.
At number 18, you actually mentioned him there. I have Ivan Provorov.
Yeah.
I think Provorov's numbers are good enough to justify that he is the number one in Philadelphia, and I think his numbers will only get better, like you said, with Ryan Ellis. But I think they were good enough to warrant putting him in this top 20 list. I think the fact that Philadelphia will likely have a better year this year than they did last year. They should. I think he's going to be a big, if not maybe the main reason why they're so good, because I think he's really going to lead this new look blue line into the future there.
It's really up to him and Sean Couturier
Yep.
to lead that Philadelphia team. At 17, this was the toughest guy. I was messaging you last night. Where do I put this guy? Jeff Petrie, I have at 17.
Okay.
Because he puts up offensive numbers you wouldn't believe as a defensive D-man.
He's arguably the best offensive defenseman, if not top 3 for sure, in the NHL right now. I like Jeff Petrie.
Yeah, so it was tough because when you think of him, you're like, okay, he's played under Shea Weber, but even when Shea Weber's out, he gets the job done. I don't know what it is, and I want to put him higher, but I just feel like I can't rationalize it because he's not that highly looked upon.
Yeah.
Who do you have at 17?
At 17, I have Aaron Ekblad.
Okay.
And I think Aaron Ekblad is the cornerstone of an interesting Florida defense. And Florida's a great team, but they're very forward heavy. Yes. And I think a lot of what Aaron Ekblad does, I think he's very deserving of that number 1 overall pick status.
Yes.
I think he does a lot of the unglamorous work.
Yeah.
And I think he's a staple, playing around 24 plus minutes a night. Mm-hmm. He's averaging here. Obviously, he had his injury problems last year. He's kind of had his injury problems throughout his career.
Yeah.
But when he's healthy, he is the staple of that Florida blue line. And again, similar to Provorov, Florida's only going to continue to get better, and he's going to be the main reason why, a big leadership guy on that team. I like Aaron Ekblad, and I think I can't justify him higher than this, but
Aaron Ekblad for me has always needed that partner, and he's found it in Mackenzie Weegar.
Yeah.
So having them together, future's bright in Florida.
Yep.
At 16, I have someone who I feel is very overlooked in Jacob Chychrun.
Okay.
He's good enough to push Oliver Ekman-Larsson out of a job in Arizona.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a tough thing to do. There's their captain, their leader for years. So
yeah, so he's the guy in Arizona. They chose right, I feel, and as they're in this rebuild, he's going to continue to be their guy in the future in Arizona.
Yep.
The future's brighter than it seems.
Yeah.
Who do you have at 16?
16, you had him in your honorable mentions. I have Zach Werenski.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. He's been putting up numbers offensively.
Yeah, but his defensive game, he's not a two-way guy. His defensive game needs work. Yeah. But like I said, my list skews a little more offensively than maybe yours would. So I think Werenski is... It remains to be seen whether he's going to age well with that contract extension he had. He should. He's young enough that he should, but... we'll see, but he's definitely deserving of being the guy in Columbus to kind of lead them out of these bleaker years. I think his numbers are good enough. His scoring numbers are fantastic.
Yeah.
I think his scoring numbers will probably go up without Seth Jones there because there's going to be more emphasis for him to do so.
Yeah.
I think it's not going to help his two-way game at all, but I think it helps his offensive game.
It's tough because Boquist you view as a offensive guy who they got in return.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that all plays out. But as of now, he's their guy.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
At 15, I have Miro Heiskanen, and the same reason I have Jacob Chychrun at 16. Heiskanen hasn't put Klingberg out of a job, but he's definitely taken a load off of him and stepped up to be the best defenseman in Dallas. Fantastic, skates like no other. And he has a great all-around game, which he's grown into quickly. Future's bright for him.
I actually did not have Heiskanen on my list, as he's another guy that I would have included there. I don't think, in my opinion, I think he's at the same level as Klingberg in terms of where he ranks as Dallas's defenseman. I think this year he goes over that. Mm-hmm. So I didn't put Miro Heiskanen on that list. He's a guy that obviously he's justified why he should be on a top 20. He's not on my list, though. At 15, I have Drew Doughty.
Okay.
And I think Drew Doughty still has... I think a lot of his issues have been he's played on a very underperforming Kings team. Mm-hmm. And I think as much as, good players are going to be good regardless, I still think he has been. Yeah. But I think he hasn't necessarily gotten the exposure that he did get when the Kings were winning cups.
Yeah.
I think Doughty is still good enough to be on this list, despite the fact a lot of people say his contract is going to age badly. I think it still will. He's definitely in a decline. He probably would have been higher on my list in years past. But I still think Doughty is still the catalyst on that blue line there. And I think now that LA is going to get better, I think his numbers are only going to elevate. Now that they have more scoring options, his assist numbers should go up. So we'll see how he responds.
Yeah. At 14, I have Dougie Hamilton.
Okay.
This move to New Jersey is really going to show us what he's made of.
Yeah.
He doesn't have Slavin, Pesci, and a fantastic Carolina blue line to back him up.
Nope.
So offensively, he's going to do his thing, but now we're going to get to see what he does defensively. And I think he's a guy who can move up my list. I think he's earned his contract. And again, it's just something we're going to have to see how it plays out for him in New Jersey. Who do you have at 14?
14 is where I have Jeff Petrie.
Okay.
For all the things you said, offensively, we haven't seen too many defensemen like him scoring at the rate that he does. I think Jeff Petrie, I think the evidence to put him at 14 is in the fact that Montreal missed him greatly when he was out for those couple games in the playoffs this year. They really felt the loss of him, and they were that much better when he came back to excel them over Vegas in that conference finals there.
Yep.
So that's where I have Jeff Petrie. I think just his offensive game is just ridiculous to the point where I have to include him in my top 15.
Yeah, fair enough. At 13, I have Jacob Slavin, the best defensive D-man in the game.
Yeah.
Really that staple on Carolina. If he wasn't who he is, they would have had to keep Dougie Hamilton, but he's able to help them absorb those kinds of losses and really not make you flinch with the moves Carolina's made because they're in such a stable place with him being the head of that.
Yeah.
But who do you have at 13?
At 13, I have Morgan Riley.
Okay.
And again, I think Morgan Riley is still the centerpiece in this developing Toronto defense here. We've done lists like this in the past just on our own. And I would have had Morgan Riley higher in years past. I think he has slipped down a bit, and I think that comes with the fact that Muzzin's there as well. They have other options on that blue line, so I think that's kind of taken away from the offensive numbers that he had in the past.
Yeah.
They've got more poised forwards now, and the fact that Nylander is only getting older and more mature. Matthews, same thing. Marner, same thing. So he really doesn't have to take a lot of offensive load anymore.
Yep.
And I don't think that Morgan Riley certainly doesn't hurt this team, but I don't think he helps this team significantly in the way that he has in the past. And I think that's just because everyone around him has gotten more skilled.
Yeah.
So that's why I think he slipped a little bit. Before I would have considered him top 10. I'm going to put him 13 here. I feel confident with that.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. At 12, I have Shea Theodore.
Okay.
Really stepped up playing alongside Pietrangelo, but even without Pietrangelo, he was fantastic. So, great two-way game. And he's always had that defensive game, but it's the offensive numbers that have pushed him up my list and will continue to push him up my list.
Yeah.
Who do you have at 12?
At 12, I have Jacob Slavin.
Okay.
And it's pretty similar to you. You had him at 13, arguably the best defensive defenseman in the NHL right now, and that has to be recognized. So it'll be interesting to see how his role increases now that Dougie Hamilton isn't there.
Yeah.
If he does have to provide a little more offensively.
I would say it's going to be by committee. I don't think it's going to fall on one guy because Dougie Hamilton is on our list, and you can't replace him with one guy.
No.
Right?
They did a good job bringing in, despite his past, Tony DeAngelo, bringing in guys like Ethan Bear too. Mm-hmm. So they did things to try to help mitigate the loss there. So it shouldn't be a huge burden on guys like Slavin.
Yep. At 11, I have Morgan Riley. Again, staple on that good Toronto team, but Toronto players may have fallen a bit overall on all our list because they haven't gotten out of the first round, and they're too good not to. They have depth now, so there's no excuses. Morgan Riley at points has looked like a Norris-winning defenseman, which is why in the past he would have been higher on our list, but now he's putting up basic numbers all around. He's just he's grown into what seems to be just a solid defenseman. What made him special seems to be dissipating as the players around him are growing and developing.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens coming into this season. But yeah, I'm not too high on Morgan Riley as I've been in the past. Who do you have at 11?
And that was the argument I was getting at, the fact that he certainly helps this team, but I don't think he helps as much as he has in the past.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt this team, but he doesn't necessarily push them over the edge like he would have. And I think that's just because a lot of the focus is on Matthews now that Matthews is scoring at that 40-goal clip.
And they have a top 4, which they've never had.
Yeah.
Since this core has been developed.
Exactly.
But again, at 11, who do you have?
At 11, I have Darnell Nurse.
Okay.
And I think Darnell Nurse is really the workhorse in this Edmonton blue line. You saw those ridiculous overtime games in that Winnipeg series where he was putting up just crazy minutes, breaking records.
Yeah.
And I think offensively, I think he's brilliant offensively. I think he's one of the better two-way defensemen in the NHL right now.
Yep.
I tried to put it, he was in my top 10 for a bit, but I had to switch him around with certain guys. But yeah, I think Darnell Nurse, I've really changed my tune on him since the playoffs. I thought that Darnell Nurse wasn't necessarily a number one guy, and you can look back in our other videos, I've said that.
I was going to mention, because it doesn't sound like you have Seth Jones on your list.
No.
And so my point is in previous videos you have said Edmonton should get a guy like this.
Yeah.
So Darnell Nurse can be that second fiddle, but
yeah, I've changed my tune now that I dive deeper into the stats.
He's that guy.
Deeper. He is that guy. Yeah. So I'm on the record saying I've changed my tune on Darnell Nurse. I'm sorry, Darnell, for everything I've said in the past.
And that's 11.
I've never necessarily slandered him.
No.
But I haven't been as high on him as I should have been.
You overlooked him.
I've overlooked him.
Yeah. But that's 11 to 20.
Yep.
Let's get into the top 10 here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kick it off at number 10. I have Aaron Ekblad.
Yep.
This. I've always loved the guy. I spent over $100 on some of his hockey cards.
Yeah.
But he's finally living up to that first overall pick, and having Uyghur on the side, fantastic. He's going to continue to dominate defensively and offensively, as he hasn't had that opportunity before because he had to do both by himself in the past.
Yeah. I think the main thing that keeps him out of that range for me is just the injuries.
And that's totally fair.
Yeah.
I get that. And again, this is something we'll have to see as it goes in the future. He's a guy that can fall. He's a guy that can rise.
Yeah, for sure.
And that goes for both of us, because you having him at 17, he still could fall, but he very well could rise on your list. Who do you have at 10?
You had him at 19. I have Charlie McAvoy at 10.
Yeah.
I think Charlie McAvoy has really grown into a top 10 best of the best defenseman. I think he's only going to get better. And I think he really took a step forward this year with Boston to really lead that blue line. I think if Boston is to win a cup, he's probably the piece he's the missing piece to that once he elevates his game to that level, because you know what you're going to get out of Pasternak, Bergeron, Marchand. So it's not
Hall, but
yeah, so it's not going to be the forwards that does it. I think it's going to be the defense. They haven't really had that top end guy for a while, and I think McAvoy is turning himself into that. So.
Yeah, that top end guy on both ends of the ice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because obviously you had Chara, but as he declined, Krug stepped up, but really only offensively. And I just want to point out, from my 10 spot to my 20 spot, these guys are so close together, even 21 with Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
But here's where there starts to get some separation. At number 9, I have Drew Doughty.
Okay.
He's been putting up monstrous minutes. And one thing you said was you expect his offensive numbers to go up as these players come in. I actually expect them to go down. I think this season he stepped up offensively because there was nobody else to do it.
Yeah.
But as the guys take on the load, he can focus back on defense as he should, because that's what he was doing to win LA those cups. Now, obviously, he still may get some assists and whatever the team needs to get done, but that's the kind of guy he is. He's going to do what his team needs to get done to win.
Yeah.
He's got 2 cups, and with this young core, they may get some more.
As that's what I was getting at, in the fact that they have a lot more playmakers on there, that they may create scoring chances on the point for Doughty, but they're also going to create things like secondary assists, and I think he's going to be a key part because he's so offensively. he's an offensively sound defenseman.
Yeah.
I think he can really get into the offense and work with guys like Philippe Danault and work with emerging guys like Quentin Byfield.
It's a new look because even when they were winning cups, they weren't really an offensive team. So you're right in saying that it could go either way. It could diminish his points, but it could very much excel them.
The defensive focus will be there. I do agree with that.
Yeah, either way, he's top 10 for me. Who do you have at 9?
At 9, I have Dougie Hamilton.
Okay.
As like you said before, Dougie Hamilton is certainly deserving of this contract, and it'll be interesting to see what he's going to do now that he is the guy. There's no complementary pieces, really. You could say PK Subban, but he has declined severely in the past couple years.
There's complementary pieces, but there's, in my opinion, there's no shutdown guy to pair beside him.
No.
So he's going to have to be good on both ends of the ice, which he hasn't had to be since Boston. Yeah. But even then, this is a first for him. Boston, there was a deep blue line.
Yep.
He had Mark Giordano in Calgary. He had, like we said before, a lot of help in Carolina. So
if he develops the two-way game like I think he could, he could very well shoot up into the top 5 in future years if he really becomes elite on both sides of the puck, which he probably has to be if New Jersey wants to make the runs that they're hoping, or they have to get him some help.
Yep, for sure. At 8, I have Darnell Nurse.
Okay.
The playoff really pushed him up. Had it not been for his playoff plays, he probably would be below 10.
Yeah.
But he's been phenomenal for them. He'll continue to be phenomenal for them. Yeah. Oscar Klefbom's supposed to be their guy. He was out, and they had a fantastic season without him. Goes to show how much Darnell Nurse stepped up this season. Yeah. And the contract, I mean, they may regret it if it was a one-time thing. Yeah. Right? Because this is really the only bit we've seen of Nurse. He hasn't proven or he hasn't played like this in the past. So we'll see what the future holds for Darnell Nurse in Edmonton. But I have him at 8. Who do you have at 8?
At 8, I have Shea Theodore.
Okay.
And I think Theodore elevated his game to at least his offensive game for sure to levels that we didn't expect. No. And I certainly don't think that Anaheim expected when they when they basically said, "Here, please take Shea Theodore. We'll give you this."
Yeah, it was take Clayton Stoner. Yeah. We'll give you Shea Theodore to do so, but they're definitely regretting that now.
Yeah, and I think he pairs nicely with Pietrangelo, and I think it's just a pair that complements each other to the point that they make each other rise up this list. So
yep. At 7, I have Chris Letang.
Okay.
Tough guy for me to rank. I wanted to have him higher, but like you said with Ekblad, it's injuries, and you don't know what you're gonna get. Pittsburgh also has won a cup without this guy. Yeah. But this season you really saw the offensive numbers step up, and he still has that good all-around game. He's a winner. And he can do a lot for your team as he ages. We're not sure what we're going to get, but I have him at 7.
In my opinion, it's a little low for Letang, but we'll get into that later.
I wanted to have him higher, but there are other guys I would prefer to build around. Yeah. That's all. Just because injuries is really what dropped him down for me.
It's a valid argument. It's just not the argument I would make. At 7, I have Alex Pietrangelo.
Yep.
I have him right there with Shea Theodore. I think that's a good spot to put both of them because, again, they complement each other so well. Pietrangelo doesn't have to be the offensive guy that he was in St. Louis, but he still continues to put up good offensive numbers and great defensive numbers. Again, he is the catalyst of this Vegas defense that is hoping to win a cup, is at least hoping to get back to the cup finals like they did in 2018. So I have Alex Pietrangelo there.
At 6, I have the same as you, Alex Pietrangelo. Okay. He's that staple. He's been that staple in St. Louis. The same for Vegas. You saw how he elevated Shea Theodore, and he continued to put up numbers for himself. Yeah. He's a guy I'd build around and feel comfortable doing so with or without support. Who do you have at 6?
At 6, I have Roman Josi.
Okay.
And again, same argument that we're going to make for a lot of these guys. You can build around him, and Nashville has built around him. He's really taken the role of the guy once Shea Weber left. Yep. So I think his offensive numbers speak for themselves. I think just his two-way game speaks for itself. So, that's why I have Roman Josi at number 6. Who do you have at 5?
John Carlson.
Okay.
And we were talking about Chris Letang. Here's originally where I would have had him, but it's just injuries for me, and I would prefer to build around Pietrangelo and Carlson over Chris Letang.
Yeah.
John Carlson has been in the talks for Norris, and he should have won one by now. I feel like he's been snubbed.
Yeah.
And you look at his offensive game, he's been putting up numbers, but it's his defensive game that matches. It may not be as good.
For sure.
But it's still there, and he's a legitimate number one blue liner. He's helped Washington win a cup, probably the best player in that run.
Yeah.
And arguably, in my opinion, he's the best player in Washington.
Yeah.
On a team with Backstrom, Ovi, and even at times Kuznetsov.
Yeah.
So that's why I have Carlson at 5.
And for every reason you said, that's why I have John Carlson at 5 as well.
Yeah.
So we don't really need to go in depth. His numbers speak for themselves.
Yep.
And the role he plays speaks for itself. So
yeah. Adam Fox is who I have at 4.
And we'll just go ahead and say it. I have Adam Fox at 4. You can do the explanation again there.
Guy came out of nowhere. You would have never expected this, especially he kind of took last season to settle in. Yeah. He's like, okay, guys, I'm going to take over the league. Wins the Norris.
Yeah.
You got to have him top 5.
But you look at his numbers the past 2 years, and they've been consistent as well. He's been one of the most productive defensemen over the past 2 years, and albeit they're shortened years, but that's when he was really too young to really do anything before then.
Yeah.
Adam Fox has really just taken the ball and kind of rolled with it. So
yeah, you look at the offensive numbers. He's another guy that lives up to that defensive that top line defenseman that you want to put up offensive numbers, but he can play defense. He's on their penalty kill. He's on their power play.
Yeah.
He's a big part of that Rangers blue line, and you just wouldn't expect it.
No, you wouldn't.
At 3, that's where I have Roman Josi.
Okay.
I feel like he's been the best blue liner on the best blue line in Nashville.
Yep.
Whether that's trading out Seth Jones to make space and trading out Shea Weber to make space, he's really taken that team by the horns and made them what they are.
Yeah.
That cup run in 2017 is because of him. Obviously, the team was good, but you can do that because you have Roman Josi. He's won his Norris, and he's just a great all-around defenseman. Yeah. Who do you have at 3?
At 3, this is where I have Chris Letang.
Yeah.
And I think Chris Letang has been wildly slept on.
Yeah, 100%.
Because like you said, they won a cup without him. They've also won 2 cups with him.
Yep.
So I think Chris Letang has been the staple on an always consistently performing Pittsburgh team. Whether they go into a decline this year, that's yet to be seen.
Yeah.
But Chris Letang has never been the reason for any of their struggles. He's always come... His injuries maybe have been a reason for problems, but when he's out there and playing, I think he's been wildly consistent.
Yep.
I think you look at his offensive numbers at least, he's been one of the top 3 guys the past 2 seasons. So
yeah. And now let me guess, 2 and 1, we have the same guys. Cale Makar at 2, Victor Hedman at 1.
Exactly.
Cale Makar, like Adam Fox, took this league over.
Yep. But you expected it out of Cale Makar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, offensively, I think he's the strongest defenseman in the NHL.
Yep.
No question.
No question.
Defensively, to take over Hedman, he's got to step it up. Because and that's unfair. That's unfair to say because Victor Hedman's Victor Hedman.
Yeah.
6'6", an absolute beast, plays defense, plays offense.
Yeah.
You got Chris Pronger, you got a little bit of Nick Lindstrom in this guy. What more do you want?
Exactly.
The guy's an absolute beast.
And I think Cale Makar could eventually take over that spot at number 1. It's tough
it's
because
likely going to take a decline.
Because Hedman's not old.
Yeah.
That's the problem too. Because if it was an aging defenseman, you're like, okay, maybe he gets old and Makar takes him over. Obviously, Makar is significantly younger, but Hedman's not old himself. So it's tough to say when, but Victor Hedman, has taken the ball and, he's running with it right now.
He's been the guy since Erik Karlsson's gone through those injuries.
Yeah.
And Cale Makar's looking like that guy that can be Erik Karlsson and be the best defenseman in the NHL.
Yep.
It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. Just a matter of when. That's going to do it for our video for our NHL top 20 defensemen heading into this season. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like the video, give it a like down below. Subscribe so you don't miss any of our other uploads. We've got our top 30 NHL forwards video coming out next week. Make sure to stay tuned for that. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. Comment down below who your top 20 defensemen are and what you think of our lists. And with that, we will see you in the next video. Thanks again, guys. Peace.